The Forum in Roman cities does reflect Roman mentality, the way the Romans thought, the way the Romans designed, and the way the Romans orchestrated space. It is an effort in design and city planning to order and control space and consequently to control human movement. So it's subtly directing human behavior to get everybody to come together, basically as a good Roman citizen. It is simply an element of Roman planning. This is another view. It's a computer-generated image to show you that it truly defined the space. You can get a better sense of the way in which everything is enclosed and delineated and outlined, and also the sense of this being on axis facing the front with no side or back entrances to the main temple, the major temple that was a part of Pompeii. The Romans were also incredibly practical people, so they made it easy to step across the street in times when the street would become flooded as a result of rain. What you're looking at quite literally here are stepping stones in the street of Pompeii. These stepping stones are carefully spaced so that cartwheels, should people need deliveries, can run between the stones. So much so, if you go up here, you're going to see, and this is the bedrock again, this is tufa like we saw with the Etruscans, you can see the patterns of the cartwheels having gone over and over and over again between the stones. For a scale shot, this is me on the lower left, and I'm walking across a set of the paved stone, the raised stones that would function as stepping stones in Pompeii to keep your tootsies dry when the streets actually flooded. Incredibly practical, and that's typical of the Romans, but also very carefully planned and pretty clearly letting us know exactly where we should be walking. Pompeii is very rich in terms of historical data that they give us. We have two examples of that. Let's go to the lower right first. That is a mill and an oven. And there are 4 separate mills, that's what these are, for grinding grain that could be created to make bread. And the bread would then be baked in the oven, which is located back here. We assume that the baker of this establishment did not make it out of Pompeii because there were 81 loaves of bread that were recovered from his oven. In the top right, this is one of them. It just gives you an idea. It is, I think, fossilized, is safe to say. It is a loaf of bread, or maybe I should say a circular shaped bread resembling, hey, a pizza. But this is what would have been produced that day in Pompeii. The other image in the upper left is a brothel scene, and this being a port city had a really hopping red light district. It shows a client reclining on a bed-like structure with a female companion who's taking, this is his money that she's passing to an assistant, and he's raising a drinking horn. Now the Romans had traditional glasses, but the idea is that the horn, and think back to the ancient times of the Paleolithic and the Neolithic, and even some of the early high civilizations, the horn itself remains associated with strength, virility, masculinity, reproduction, fertility, and in this case, it has a sexual overtone associated with it. In addition, we get to see a portion of the business district, and that's going to include a fast food restaurant, which is what we're looking at in the 2 slides that are on the left half of the screen. Honestly, you're looking at an early McDonald's because you could stop here. The proprietor could scoop out something that's already made and kept warm, if desired, from these holes, and there are more choices, so you have multiple opportunities to pick a food item that you could grab and then go about your business with. So it is a precursor of things to come, but also a reminder that Pompeii, like other Roman cities, were really a whole lot like our modern cities. They tended to be very, very cosmopolitan by nature, and that does include um, sections of the city to serve our personal needs and also provide for entertainment. In the lower right is a public bath, and public baths were an important part of, I'm going to say to some extent, social life within the ancient world. There would be independent baths for males, for females, and in particular for the men, it was a gathering place where they could exercise, they could engage in discussions, and if you were wealthy, you would take all of your slaves with you. So it would be an opportunity to display your wealth and your position within society. The other image is a shot of the amphitheater, and let's go to a closer look at that. This is 713 in our textbook, which is an aerial of the Pompeii amphitheater. And the term amphitheater does mean double theater. So I'd like you to think back to the Greek theater, think particularly of Epidurus, where the Greeks give us a semicircle. Well, that's not appealing to the Romans. The Romans want to enclose space, to clarify space. They're also practical people, so they want to take the fullest advantage of space. So they come up with the design of the enclosed theater. The one at Pompeii is the oldest existing one that we know of. We estimate that it could have held around 20,000 people. That is bigger than Epidurus. We have 12,000 for Epidurus, but remember that Epidurus is actually only a semicircle, so it's half of this theater. The image that we have here, and we'll try and get to a little more detail with the Colosseum later, and the Colosseum, of course, is an amphitheater also. It is made possible for us by the use of concrete, which is a material that the Romans used extensively because it is practical. The Roman bath that I just showed you actually was also made out of concrete. In the lower corner, there is a gladiator's helmet, and gladiatorial contests did take place here. Gladiators would often be drawn from the slave population, perhaps captives taken on the battlefield, who then could be sold into slavery. The good ones, the strong ones, could be trained as gladiators, and just like the movie with Russell Crowe, Gladiator, you had at least a chance, if you could survive, if you were good enough to survive, of actually keeping a fairly good lifestyle, maintaining a wealthy lifestyle, and enjoying yourself. It was, however, a dangerous occupation. These are just some of the images of things found in Pompeii and Herculaneum. The lady on the lower right is referred to as the ring lady, because she did what a lot of women did as she ran from her home in this disaster, and that was to grab her jewelry. It was the most valuable of her possessions. She put it on. She had a couple bracelets down here, gold bracelets shown up here, and a couple rings that she was wearing at the same time. She too fell victim to Vesuvius. In the bottom left, right here, there is a set of medical equipment. It's a doctor's kit, basically, that also was recovered. And I simply show it to you again to remind you that we have much in common with the ancient world, and that actually includes some of the medical equipment. Over here, I think we have scalpels. This is a tweezer. I guess this is called a forceps, but these are implements that in modern materials are also used in the 21st century. This is a view upper right into a reconstructed room within a home that comes from Pompeii. It's located in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You can see that the walls are richly painted and that the floors were decorated with mosaics. So you could get a little bit of a sense by visiting the Met of what an actual Roman room might have looked like. A kind of reminder that the Romans, like us today, decorated their environments to make them comfortable. Instead of hanging pictures on the wall, though, they actually had artists come in and paint pictures on the wall. Their floors also were generally made out of mosaic. Certainly, if you could afford it, you would have a mosaic floor. The Romans also did what many of us still do today, and I have taken from the web the Beware of the Doggy sign right here. This is a modern sign. This image, which is mosaic on the lower left, actually comes from from Pompeii, and it is Cave Canem, which means exactly beware of the dog. I assume these people had dogs, but again, I'm not sure that they actually did, and the warning might have been sufficient. The homes also had paintings, different paintings for different rooms and for different purposes. I do have a Smart History video for you that I would like you to take a look at, and it's Still Life with Peaches, and this is 726 in our textbook, and this is a reference to hospitality, essentially, that would be shared with anyone visiting the home of this particularly well-to-do person.